Welcome to The Growth Spurt, a weekly AI podcast by the Second Baptist Church of Ann Arbor.
Glad to be here.
This week, we are diving into a sermon.
Ooh, a sermon.
Yeah, one that really resonated with a lot of folks.
Okay, I'm in sight.
It's called Do the Right Thing, delivered by Dr. Stephen J. Daniels, Sr.
Okay, I've heard of him.
It all starts with Cain and Abel.
Those two brothers from the Bible.
Yeah, one brother's gift to God is accepted, the other's
Right.
rejected, and, well, things get a little rough.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough story.
But what's so interesting is how Dr. Daniels takes this ancient story and uses it like a mirror.
Oh, I see.
He's asking us to look at how we approach giving,
Okay.
not just to God, but in our daily lives too.
I like that.
Are we just going through the motions, giving
Yeah.
out of obligation, or are we really giving from the heart?
That's such a powerful point. You know, it's like when you get a gift and it just feels off.
Yeah.
You can almost sense the lack of thought behind it.
Exactly. And Dr. Daniels uses that same analogy.
Okay.
He even talks about gift cards.
Oh, yeah.
Convenient, but often lacking that personal touch.
Makes sense.
He's basically saying, even when we are giving, sometimes we're only giving some of ourselves, not our best.
Interesting distinction.
And he pulled those specific words from the Bible, some versus best, to describe what Cain and Abel brought to God.
It's subtle, but yeah, it does say a lot about their intentions.
For sure. And then Dr. Daniels asks us to consider, when we give, are we holding back? Are we just checking a box, or are we truly putting our hearts into it?
That's deep. You know, it makes you think about how you feel.
I know, right?
When you get a gift that clearly wasn't given the joy.
Ugh, the worst.
And then imagine God feeling that way.
Ooh, that's tough.
When you give to him.
Ouch. That's a tough one to swallow. I've definitely been guilty of that.
Giving out of guilt.
Yeah, or obligation, just because I felt like I should.
Well, Dr. Daniels acknowledges that it's a struggle.
Yeah.
We all face it. He even uses humor.
Does he?
To talk about how people act when they're giving begrudgingly. You know, the sighs, the forced smiles.
Definitely avoidable.
It makes you think, though, why are we doing this if it doesn't feel good?
Right. What's the point?
Is it societal pressure, pride?
It really makes you examine yourself.
He has this one line.
What is it?
Imagine God giving to you in the same way you give to him.
Oh.
That one really stops you in your tracks.
It does make you think, are we giving generously,
like Abel,
or are we holding back? And it's not just about material things, is it?
No, absolutely not. Dr. Daniels talks about giving our time, our talents, our emotional support. It's about being present with someone, being empathetic, offering a helping hand.
Without expecting anything in return.
Exactly. That's what genuine giving looks like.
So we've got generous giving. We've got genuine giving.
Yes.
But Cain's story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
Things take kind of a dark turn when his offering gets rejected.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
And that's where giving peacefully comes in.
Okay, I'm listening.
Cain gets so jealous of his brother.
Oh, no.
He let these bad feelings just fester.
Yikes.
And it leads to a very tragic outcome.
That's the part I don't like.
But he had a choice, didn't he?
I guess so.
He could have looked inward, learned from Abel.
Right.
But instead, he gets fixated on what his brother's doing. All that resentment just eats him up inside.
That's what Dr. Daniels wants us to avoid.
Totally. He reminds us that it makes no sense to resent other people's blessings.
Especially when they're genuinely giving their best.
Exactly. So it's not about competition.
Not at all.
Trying to outdo each other in the giving department.
Nope. It's about peace and generosity.
With God and with each other.
Sometimes that means celebrating someone else's success.
Yeah, instead of letting it steal our joy.
Right, recognizing there's enough abundance for everyone.
Definitely something I'm working on.
Me too. We all are. It's human nature to feel jealousy.
Oh, for sure.
But it's how we handle it.
That makes all the difference.
Do we let it consume us like Cain?
Ooh.
Or do we let it go and focus on our own path?
That's such a powerful point. So we've got generous giving.
Yes.
Genuine giving. And giving peacefully.
Right.
But there's another layer here that I found really interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
It's when Dr. Daniels brings up that age-old question.
Okay.
Am I my brother's keeper?
Whoa. Now we're getting into some deep stuff.
He doesn't give us a straight answer, though.
I bet.
But he makes us really wrestle with it.
What do we owe each other?
Right. Where does responsibility begin? Exactly. Such a powerful question.
He has resonated throughout history.
And he connects it back to giving.
Go on.
Suggesting that true generosity goes beyond just material things.
I see.
It's also about how we show up for each other.
I like that.
He points out that Cain initially denies any responsibility for his brother.
Yeah, he does.
He asks, am I my brother's keeper? Almost defensively.
Like he's trying to distance himself from what happened.
Exactly. A classic example of avoidance.
Right. But Dr. Daniels argues that we can't just wash our hands of responsibility.
Especially to those closest to us.
Our actions always have consequences.
For ourselves and those around us.
Makes you think about those times when we see someone struggling.
Oh, yeah.
A family member, a friend, even a stranger.
Do we offer support? Or do we turn away?
It's a tough question.
There's a lot to consider.
But Dr. Daniels challenges us to think about what it truly means.
To be our brother's keeper.
What does it look like to show up for one another?
Offer that helping hand, embody that spirit of generosity.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have. We've talked about the story of Cain and Abel. Giving generously.
Right.
Giving genuinely, giving peacefully. The whole question of responsibility towards others.
There's still so much to unpack in Dr. Daniels' message.
You're telling me stay with us as we keep exploring, do the right thing.
One of the things that really hit me.
What was it?
Was how Dr. Daniels connected being our brother's keeper to giving generously.
Oh, I see.
He's saying it's not just about material possessions. It's about time, talents, emotional support.
Right, going beyond the surface level.
Exactly. It's being present, empathetic, offering help without expecting anything back.
And I think that's where giving cheerfully comes in.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, Dr. Daniels said our giving should reflect our love for God.
Yeah, like a natural overflow.
Exactly. And if we truly love God, we should want to give him our best.
Just like Abel did.
Right. But he also acknowledged that it's not always easy.
Of course not.
To give our best.
Life happens.
Right. We've got our own struggles and challenges.
It's true. It's easy to get caught up in that what's in it for me mindset.
Especially when it comes to giving.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're not being taken advantage of.
Of course.
We want to feel appreciated.
Makes sense. But Dr. Daniels wants us to shift our perspective.
Okay, how so?
He said giving shouldn't be a burden or a chore. But a privilege.
Oh, I like that.
And an opportunity to show our gratitude.
To God.
And to others.
He used that analogy of a cheerful giver.
Right, someone who gives freely and joyfully.
With no strings attached.
Think about a time you got a gift.
Yeah.
And you could just tell how much the giver enjoyed giving it.
Ooh, yeah, that makes the gift so much more meaningful.
Right. Their joy becomes part of the gift itself.
It's not just the object, it's the heart behind it.
Exactly. And Dr. Daniels reminds us that if our giving isn't rooted in love and sincerity,
then what?
It's meaningless. It's just going through the motions.
Right. It's all about the motivation.
And Dr. Daniels also talked about examining our motives for giving.
Okay.
Are we giving from a pure heart?
Or are we driven by guilt?
Social pressure? A desire for recognition?
It's easy to get caught up in those external things.
It is. We want to be seen as generous.
We want to fit in.
That Dr. Daniels wants us to look inward.
Okay.
Ask ourselves, what's really motivating us?
Because if we're not honest with ourselves about why we're giving, it's not really giving at all.
Almost like we're trying to fool ourselves.
Maybe even God.
Into thinking we're more generous than we are.
Which ties back to Cain, you know?
How so?
He was so focused on the outward appearance of his offering. That he neglected his own heart.
Right. Remember Dr. Daniels warning us about comparing ourselves to others.
When it comes to giving.
Exactly. He uses Cain as an example.
Right.
Who became consumed with jealousy when God favored evil.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Daniels makes it clear that comparison is a dangerous path.
Leads to bitterness, envy.
Even destructive behavior.
So we need to focus on our own relationship with God.
Give what we can.
With a cheerful and generous heart.
Without worrying about what others are doing.
Because at the end of the day, God doesn't need our gifts, does he?
I guess not. He already has everything.
Right. He's blessed us beyond measure.
So our giving isn't about meeting his needs.
It's about expressing our love and gratitude.
For all he's done for us.
That's beautiful.
It reminds us that true giving goes beyond the material.
It's time, talents, compassion,
recognizing
that we're all connected.
And that we have a responsibility to care for each other.
Sometimes that means tough choices.
Yeah, doing the right thing isn't always easy.
It takes courage, integrity.
A willingness to stand up for what we believe in.
Even when it's unpopular.
And we might make mistakes along the way.
We're human.
But that doesn't mean giving up.
Right.
We learn from them, ask for forgiveness, keep trying to do better.
Dr. Daniels reminds us that we're not defined by our mistakes.
But by our willingness to learn and grow.
We're all on a journey.
And God's grace is always there to guide us.
So what does it mean to do the right thing?
Well, Dr. Daniels ends the sermon with a powerful call to action.
He does.
He urges us to live with integrity and compassion.
Beautiful.
He says doing the right thing isn't always about rule.
It's not.
Sometimes it's about listening to our hearts.
Oh.
Being guided by love and compassion.
I like that. And sometimes it's about asking ourselves that tough question.
Am I my brother's keeper?
And having the courage to act on the answer.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Right. This sermon is like a seed.
That's a good analogy.
Planted in our minds, and it's going to keep growing as we reflect on it.
I think you're right. Stay with us as we wrap up our deep dive into Do the Right Thing. As we wrap up this whole deep dive into Do the Right Thing, there's this one question that just keeps coming back to me.
Oh, really? What is it?
It's that question Dr. Daniels asked.
You mean, am I my brother's keeper?
That's the one. What does it really mean to be responsible for each other?
It goes deeper than just helping someone out when they need it. It's about how we see ourselves compared to everyone else.
Okay.
Are we all individuals, each on our own, or are we part of something bigger?
Like a community.
Exactly. Interconnected, obligated to care for one another.
And Dr. Daniels doesn't give us an easy answer, does he?
Nope. Leaves us to wrestle with it.
He does point us in a direction, though.
How so?
By looking at Cain's reaction.
Right. He practically yells, am I my brother's keeper?
Like he wants to deny any responsibility.
But Dr. Daniel says we can't escape the impact of our actions.
Our actions affect others.
Like ripples in a pond.
Oh, yeah.
Even a tiny pebble makes waves that go way beyond where it landed.
I see what you mean.
Our choices, our words, even what we don't do.
It all affects the people around us.
So maybe being our brother's keeper isn't about having all the answers.
Yeah, or fixing everyone's problems.
Maybe it's about just showing up.
Being willing to listen.
Empathize, offer support however we can.
And maybe it's about admitting that we need each other.
We can't do life alone.
That's where the idea of community fits in.
Dr. Daniels talked about that.
Having people we can count on.
People who love us, encourage us.
Even hold us accountable when we mess up.
It makes you wonder.
What?
Are we that kind of community for others?
Are we the ones offering support when someone's struggling?
That's Dr. Manuel's challenge to us.
It's not enough to just think about it.
We have to put it into action.
Step outside our comfort zones.
Show up for each other.
In real and tangible ways.
And remember doing the right thing.
Being our brother's keeper.
It's not a finish line.
It's a journey.
One we're all on together.
Dr. Daniel's message really is a gift.
It is.
It makes us think differently about giving.
About responsibility.
About living a good life.
A life of purpose.
And I think we'll be thinking about these ideas for a long time.
Me too. It's a lot to unpack.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Already.
I hope this conversation gave you some new insights.
Maybe even challenged you a bit.
To examine your own heart.
Like Dr. Daniel says, the choice is always ours.
Will we be our brother's keeper?
Will we do the right thing?
Even when it's hard.
We encourage you to go back and listen to the sermon again.
Keep thinking about what it means to you.
And until next time.